All right, welcome back to OpenLine. We were talking about affordable housing. Right now we have Mel on line 3. Mel, good evening. What is your question?
Well, I have both a question and a comment. My question is Nashville literally outgrowing itself? Many people, or some people who have been rooted in this city, born and raised here, are having to leave the city because of the cost of living. And I'm a contractor, and not a one of my crews can afford to live in Nashville. And at the rate that we're growing and the property values, in 10 or 15 years, Nashville is not going to be composed of Nashvillians. They're going to have to leave. And I think it's just a much more serious problem than some of our local leaders understand. And that's my observation. And I'll hang up and listen to your panel's comments.
Mel, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mel, you're right. We agree with you. One of the things that I've done on a regular basis is drive by the new HCA building and look at the license plates on the cars and the trucks lined up on the roads surrounding that work site. And the majority of the license plates are not Davidson County license plates. And some of them are license plates from Georgia and from Kentucky, Alabama. So that tells you a lot right there. We're seeing people that come to us move to outlying areas. They're moving to Smyrna, they're moving to Laverne, they're moving to Springfield, to Dixon County, to Spring Hill, and they're joining the line of commuters coming into the city every day because they can't afford to live here anymore.
One of the important, if I might, one of the important connections for workforce housing is transit. And we recently heard about a major transit initiative of the city, and we're not here to tout that plan, but we do understand and we support the fact that without a good, effective transit plan for Nashville, that people cannot commute to work affordably. You can't afford to park a car. If you're one of Mel's workers, you can't afford to park your car downtown, let alone drive an hour through traffic to get there. And so transit's a part of that answer along with more housing.
All right, let's go to line 4. Alex, good evening. What is your question? Alex, good evening. You there?
Hello.
Alex, what is your question?
My question is that affordable housing, why come the mayor won't allow some of the HUD houses that's available be set aside for affordable housing?
Can you say that one more time?
Some of the houses that have apartments that have been built, HUD, why come some of those?
All right, it seems like we cut out on that one. Hey, David, line 2, what is your question?
Yes, do you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Good evening.
Yeah, hi, I'm a retired general contractor, industrial class DC. Got a question for you. You know, you people can do wonderful things with other people's money. You can take people that have the money to own these homes or build these things as general contractors, and you want them to do this, do that. But it all boils down to one thing. You're making it off of other people's backs and other people's money. If you would eliminate half your government regulations, not do more, take about half of them off, and I'm not saying codes necessarily or the fire marshal, but, you know, we got people all across the country that are developing little small homes or tiny houses and all this kind of thing. Wonderful idea, great concept. That's the way they want to live. But you know what? Oh, no, we can't have that. Listen to me, guys. I know from experience. Nashville, I was born and raised here. I've been here. I've lived not, you know, right in Nashville all the time, but a great deal of the time. I've built millions of dollars worth of work there. I've seen no telling how many contractors coming out of state working, no telling how many illegal aliens for half of the price that I was paying my people. And I'm sitting and watching all this stuff going on. And I see this, everybody, well, we got to do something about you know, housing. Well, it will take care of itself if you will stop. Everything you're doing is only going to increase the rent on those that can pay. It's only going to increase the rates on the builders. And not to mention, it's unconstitutional. It's totally, I mean, I can't understand. Why do you people remain Democratic? I'll never understand. With that, I will say thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, strong opinions right there.
And certainly entitled to an opinion just like all Americans are.
Let's talk about the difference between affordable and workforce, because I know with the bill, essentially with the apartment developers, we're talking about for people who are teachers or who are in the law enforcement, and there's actually a difference between the two that people may not realize. Avi, tell us more about that.
Well, I'm going to let Floyd give you the technical answer, but I really appreciate your asking that. So often during this conversation on housing, depending on what your outcome you wish to have, you can define what you're doing as either being affordable or workforce. And often people call what's affordable is they're really talking about a higher income group of people. And people don't get to use the terms at their own will. They only get to use the terms as they're truly meant to be used.
Are they being misused, the terms?
They're being confused more than misused, Matthew, and part of the reason for that is different funding agencies, the federal government and the state government, set different standards for what is affordable and what is workforce housing. So federal government says if you're making between 80 and 120% of the area median income, which includes places like Williamson County and other communities with a very high income level, that's workforce housing to the federal government in the Nashville area. To the state, if you're earning 60 to 120% of the area median income, you are you're qualified to live in workforce housing. And the city's definition is now, thanks to some legislation that's been passed, 60 to 120% of the median household income of Davidson County only, which means we're going to help Davidson County residents on their salary scale. And so for teachers, firefighters, police officers, most entry-level union labor jobs, the contractor that called complaining about this whole movement, workforce housing is for his employees. And it's people earning up to $62,000 a year for a family of four. It's not housing for the impoverished. Affordable housing is for people earning between 0 and 60% of the household income, whether you're using the area median income by HUD's definition, 0 to 80 actually, and the city and state use 0 to 60 for affordable, and the city uses median household income for Davidson County. So for example, if you were born with disabilities and you've reached adulthood and you're capable of living independently, but you're not capable of sustaining employment that will support you, where are you going to live? That is affordable housing. Most folks have this thing in their head of welfare and the burden on those of us that are employed, and it's an unfortunate analogy that is thrown out there because there are many born to circumstances that weren't able to create a company like I have, like the gentleman who called has, and employ people and earn a living. There are people who, for circumstances beyond their control, cannot afford a roof over their head. Does society have an obligation, Matthew, to provide for those with the least among us? We're asking that question every day.
You mentioned income, and I know, Kay, you mentioned you like numbers earlier, and you do have kind of this graph or chart right here with numbers with income. Talk about the poverty line and kind of the alarming statistics that people here in Nashville or surrounding areas are facing.
So for a family of four, the poverty level in Nashville is about, the poverty level for a family of four in the U.S., anywhere, that's one of the problems, is about $23,000. So on $23,000 a year, an affordable rent for that family of four would be just slightly below $600 a month, around $600 a month. It's hard to find that anywhere. You can find it in our shop.
Hard to find one room.
It's hard to find one room. So that is a significant problem for close to 18% of our citizens. That's a big problem.
45% of Davidson County's children live below the federal poverty line.
45% of our children. That's an alarming number, and we want to push that out every opportunity that we get.
1 out of 4?
1 out of 5. I think.
1 out of 4 children are living in poverty. 1 out of 5 adults and children are living in poverty.
But let's talk about some of the workers, because one of the things we always ask of people coming to us is, what's your source of income? If they say, "Oh, work," we say, "Where do you work? Who do you work for?" And let's talk what's your income every month. So for a household income of $36,000, an affordable rent, meaning a rent where they're not paying more than 30% of their monthly income for rent, is around $900 a month. The average one-bedroom rent levels are now $1,200 a month in our county. The average two-bedroom rent levels are now at $1,400 a month. We don't just have a problem, we have a crisis that calls for not just starts, but bold steps and sustained commitment. That's the message we want to speak over and over and over and over. For people on disability, we have people on disability living in some of our apartments. An affordable rent for a typical disability payment a month is around $480. Many of those are people that have been part of our workforce, worked all their lives, ended up with heart conditions, problems, they can no longer work. Shouldn't we ensure that they also can remain housed and healthy? They're part of our community. They're part of us.
I want to touch more on that. But first, let's go to Brian, line 1. Brian, what's your question?
Yes, well, it's not a question more. We'll start with a statement. I got 2 things I want to say. First of all, I lived in Nashville I lived in Murfreesboro from 2001 to 2003, and I lived in Nashville from 2003 to 2009 by the airport. And my Jeep burnt Christmas Day, and I'm sure what happened there, neighborhood started to change and started getting a little rougher right over by the airport. And then I moved out to Bellevue. And then I moved way out in the country, right outside Fairview, Williamson County, Davidson border, Bellevue. But it just seems like people have to keep moving farther and farther to get that balance of quality of life and what you can pay for and where you're going to live. So the worst commutes are 24 to Murfreesboro. Now, when I used to commute from Murfreesboro to Nashville, it only took 20 minutes. Now it's taking an hour. Now, from the west end, from where I'm at, it only takes 35 minutes. All I'm saying is they should stop all that TIF increment finances, immediately stop that, keep a hold on this construction and start focusing on residential construction, not just apartments, but sort of detached housing for people that are working people, and not just people that are firemen or teachers. I mean, the public sector, you're trying to say these guys, they don't make that much money, 65, 70, 80. Firemen and teachers get paid tons of money in Nashville Metro. The Metro employees get paid tons of money. So I'm talking about guys who work in the private sector, giving them affordable housing.
All right, Brian, thank you. He does mention the residential, not just apartments, but homes.
So one of the things that leads me to worry about is the density of poverty and where it's located right now. When you look at 6 of our zip codes, they're almost entirely densely populated with people deep in poverty. When you look at the children growing up in those dense poverty neighborhoods, you can quickly understand that their opportunities to lift themselves out of poverty are severely limited by the socio and the economic circumstances in which they live. So Floyd often talks about the importance of place of housing, and I'm hearing this gentleman allude to that as well. One of the issues is how do we disperse people into socially economic inclusive neighborhoods so that our children can grow up into the next generation having the advantages that other children have.
The typical answer from those communities that have successfully addressed the issue the caller has raised is called middle housing. So if on your arterials you're building 4 to 6 story apartment houses with flats and they back up into single family neighborhoods between the arterials with the 4 to 6 story apartments and the single family subdivisions, 2 to 4 blocks of middle housing like duplexes and
Quads.
attached dwelling units that are single family units that are just a little more dense than the single family subdivision, but it allows that worker who's making the kind of money the gentleman who called in about, if you build that product, there's a demand for that product. One issue we have is the zoning code doesn't particularly allow large swaths of property to be built that way. It's either stacked flats or single family. What's your choice? And having more area land mass in Davidson County zoned for middle housing would be a big help. It's one of the things that's in our platform.
All right. Well, speaking of that, we'll touch base more on that platform. Plus, I do want to ask. Again, we talk about the workforce population, but what about the low-income families? You know, there are neighborhoods, like that caller said, being driven out, homeowners being driven out from their own. They've been here for decades in Nashville, now forced to this dire situation in a crisis that you have described. We'll talk more about affordable housing after the break. Caller, you are in ICU. We'll answer your question coming up after the break.